continent of the world. However, their prisoners represent 25% of the world's prisoner population. As runners-up, we have China with 1.5 million prisoners, Brazil with 690,000, and Russia with 580,000 people in custody. At the bottom of this list, we have San Marino with an astounding 3 people registered as prisoners. But when we look at percentages, specifically the incarceration rate per 100,000 people, despite having the US in first place as well, we have El Salvador and Turkmenistan in second and third places due to their lower population totals. Next, a country which makes most of its national income off the internet, Tuvalu. A country in the Pacific Ocean of Polynesian culture and with only about 10,000 people living in it. They're independent since 1978, but still have the British Queen as head of state. For some time, Tuvalu wasn't able to join the UN, not because of any problem with other countries' recognition of sovereignty or violation of any rights, but simply because they couldn't afford the $100,000 entrance fee. But all their problems were solved in the year 2000. They were attributed the abbreviation of .tv for online domains, and since it's a desirable domain because of television, they negotiated a 12-year lease for it for $50 million. Keep in mind that their GDP in 2016 was a mere $39 million, so they make more money off leasing their web domain than they do with their economy. With this money, they were able to invest in their country and also finally join the UN as the 189th member. Third on the list, we have the country with the most spoken languages, Papua New Guinea. English is the official language, but only on paper. A mere 1 to 2% of the population actually speak it on a daily basis. Hundreds of others are used by the native population, 820 to be precise, counting 12% of the world's total number of languages in one country alone. Papua New Guinea is also full of other interesting facts, like the number of languages demonstrate it's one of the world's most diverse countries, and also one of the least explored on Earth due to its dense rainforest. There are projected to be many undiscovered animal species living inside it. Despite having a poor population, which is mostly focused on agriculture, the country has discovered large deposits of oil and natural gas, which might help change the economic reality of the country. Next, we have an interesting fact about Greenland. They're big fans of football, ever since the Danish settlers brought it over when they colonized the island. But sadly, they aren't allowed to join FIFA. Greenland's weather makes it impossible for grass to grow, or at least the type of grass that FIFA regulation requires. Since they aren't able to have regulation stadiums or fields, they aren't allowed to host official games, which makes it impossible for them to compete in official international competitions. Their fields are made of synthetic grass, but apparently that wasn't enough for FIFA to let them join. So in the eyes of international football, they're kind of seen as part of Denmark. The Faroe Islands, however, also politically tied to Denmark, have their own team and football independence, if you will. In fifth, we have the world's most overweight country, and keep in mind that this is percentage-wise. Nauru in the Pacific Ocean has the world's largest percentage of overweight people at an astounding 95%. However, Nauru has a reasonably small population. In fact, it's the world's smallest island nation, covering only 21 square kilometers. So when you compare it to other countries like the US with 33% or the UK with 27%, these countries actually have more overweight people. Nauru is only ahead in terms of percentage. The top spot on this list has changed throughout each year, and usually its taker is another Pacific island of the same sorts. The low population on each of them makes it easy for any problem to affect a majority of the population. Another fun fact about Nauru is that it's the only Republican state in the world which doesn't have an official capital. I guess their size is so small that it doesn't make sense to have one. Now we take a look at a country which is at the center of the world, kind of. Kiribati is the only country on Earth which falls into all 4 hemispheres, having the equator cross through it and spreading over the eastern and western hemispheres, being located where these lines all meet. Keep in mind that it's an archipelago and its land is spread across these dividing lines through many islands. Because of this, it's the country where the sun rises the earliest, being the first country to see the new year every time December 31st comes around. It has 33 atolls and reef islands, only 21 of which are inhabited, and 90% of the population lives on the Gilbert Islands. It has around 100,000 people, which seems like a reasonable amount for a set of small islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We travel to North Korea for the next one, the country in the world which is arguably the most closed off to the exterior. Does its reputation justice with its usage of a specific and exclusive computer operating system. Forget disputes between iOS or Windows. The few North Koreans with access to a computer use an operating system called Red Star OS. It's based on Linux and was developed by the Korean Computer Center. Before its development, it is said that most computers in the country use the Red Hat Linux OS or Windows XP. Some screenshots make it look actually pretty similar to the early versions of Apple computers. In 2013, leader Kim Jong-un was seen with an iMac on his desk in a photo, so this might be the reason for the look similarity. It uses a modified Firefox browser called Nainada, which translates to My Country. Next, North Sentinel Island. Not actually a country, but worth a mention since it's pretty interesting. They are located on North Sentinel Island, off the coast of Burma and India in the Bay of Bengal. They are a civilization which remain up to this day the most isolated tribe in the world, avoiding contact with any type of people who come from the exterior. In the time of colonialism, the British in control of India tried contacting them, but it didn't go so well, and independent India had a similar experience with the locals. People were so curious to see them that the local government, who technically owns the islands, had to make it illegal for people to visit it, especially because the locals tended to not be very friendly towards visitors. A few years back, 2 fishermen crossed into their waters and were killed, and when a tsunami hit the region, India sent an helicopter to check on the natives, and then they started shooting arrows at the helicopters, so one can assume that they were okay. Moving to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is really interesting as a country, having a lot of cool pieces of history, like it being one of the 2 only countries in Africa not to be colonized by the Europeans. But for this listing, I have another interesting fact. Due to the strong presence of Coptic Orthodox churches in the country, Ethiopia's traditional calendar is 7 years behind the rest of the Western world, being the 2nd largest populated country in Africa with over 90 million people, which on the 31st of December of this year will be celebrating going into 2011. Lucky them. Lastly, we have the world's quickest disappearing country, Latvia. As of 2017, no other country on Earth is having a larger population decrease than Latvia. In 2017, statistics point to a loss of 18.2% of its population, mostly due to young people moving outside of the country. Ever since the country joined the EU, its people have gotten a closer look at the quality of life in other European countries, and since they now have free movement of people, the national population has gone abroad in search for better chances. The same thing has happened with its Baltic neighbors of Estonia and Lithuania. If it was to keep up this rate, Latvia would be pretty much deserted by 2021. And those were 10 plus a few other interesting but ultimately useless facts from countries across the world. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a comment below and subscribe to catch the more serious videos I make on the channel, usually about flags or history in general. Until next time.